Broads Media.
We got our Pro Bowlers. As if I give a damn about who made the Pro Bowl from this roster. Holy hell. All right, let's get into it because this team is on my mind 24/7. Obviously, if you can't tell, go look back at our upload schedule. Birds. It's the only thing I can think about. And it's very unfortunate because this team ruins my life when they're failing, and oh boy, are they failing. Now I'm trying to figure out what's best for this last game of the season against New York. And I hear debates all around this town about how it might potentially snow, how there might be a big rainstorm, how we can't trust MetLife Stadium and that horrible field. Let's just punt the final game of the season and hope that things change for the playoffs. Huh? What? No. They do not deserve that luxury, okay? No, that's a luxury item. In what universe does this core get a little free pass on the final week? I don't care if anything can happen to certain play. Like, things can happen, yes. I don't care that an injury risk is real because they're playing a football game. That can happen at any point, anytime. You have been such a disaster that you have to go out there and try and get things to click. Whether the Giants blow or not, and that's the counter argument. If they annihilate the New York Giants, what's the response? The Giants blow. Yeah, you're probably right. I'll be saying that, no doubt. I'll tell you right now, up front and center, that would probably be my opening statements on a post-game pod, right? And if they barely squeeze by, what's the reaction? Dude, they can't even legitimately beat the Giants. They are horrendous. They suck. They're pathetic. And I'll be up front and center. If that's the case, that's exactly how I'm going to open my post-game pod. But it shouldn't be based off of what my reaction is. The Eagles should not be making decisions on personnel and snap counts and what players they dress in a final game because of what Broads is going to say on YouTube and WIP. No, what it's about is getting right and actually feeling some sort of confidence about yourself because you are so down in the dumps. Let's get some rhythm. Let's see if there's something maybe you can get out of this to feel good heading into whatever team you might see in that first round. And quite frankly, we have no idea what's going to happen with the Dallas Cowboys in that final game. It's not in AT&T Stadium, so that does open up the door for something bonkers and weird to happen. Not that that changes really the trajectory of what I think this Eagles team can do, but once again, that's irrelevant. I don't believe it would be smart to punt a final game when you've been trying to get right for weeks. And I know it probably won't happen anyway. There's nothing that's going to change my opinion on who they are, but that doesn't mean that you give away this opportunity. Every snap matters. Every play matters. Every drive matters. Every single detail, according to Nick Sirianni, detail. He's the one that's saying it like that. If all of that is true, and that's one of your core values and one of your beliefs, that you have to be a very detailed team, and if you don't establish that, you will look miserable, then right now, based off of their play, you have to trot them out there. You have to find ways, if you can, Devontae Smith, let's see what he can do from a physical standpoint based off of the injury that happened against the Cardinals. You cannot waste any opportunity to be detailed because you haven't done it to this point. Now, if you did it for 15 games, then it's totally different. You have a big enough of a sample size for me to trust who you are. I can believe your identity is a detailed football team. It is the exact opposite, and I don't trust them. I don't trust them at all. So you have to give it every single chance you can to try and squeeze out the details. That's the way I look at it, and I don't think that there's any other way that makes a lot of sense. And you know what pisses me off with this organization? And this is even a front office thing, all right? I'll even take some jabs upstairs. Why is it that whenever this team is hot and this team is rolling and this team has a chance, they are legitimately the top of the league Super Bowl contender? But when it falls apart, it's ugly. It is so gross. It's so bad. They don't just have anything normal. And even if you want to go back to Nick Sirianni's first year, where they went 9-8, you could look at the record and think that that was somewhat of an even year. But because of the expectations heading into it, here's Jalen Hurts, who's a starter. Here's Nick Sirianni, a first-year head coach. For you to have a 9-8 season and actually make the playoffs, that was you riding an extreme high at the time due to the fact that nobody really expected it. You know, it came out of nowhere, and you had the wonky first press conference, and nobody really knew about the personality of Sirianni. Can you take this guy seriously? Is he a clown? Does he know what he's doing? Does it relate to the locker room? Do these pro athletes buy in? And that particular season, it was an extreme high because we had no idea what to expect. And then the following season, you get an MVP year. You go to the Super Bowl. You were mowing teams down left and right. There was never any competition. And then you get to the Super Bowl. I'm saying throughout the regular season, man, they were just tearing apart opponents no matter what. You work yourself into a battle with the best team out in the AFC, Kansas City, Andy Reid. It's an extreme high. When things fall apart, like Doug Peterson, after the year they won the Super Bowl, there were messages from players, and they were like, dude, this roster is even better than last year's. And what happens? They start out slow, and then they win 5 of their first 12. They're 5-7. Then they go on an extreme high, and they finish 9-7. These were some of the seasons under Doug Peterson. Why is it so toxic when it does run its course? And it's pretty bizarre that it's to this level. And I think that does stem from Howie Roseman. I think Howie Roseman isn't the greatest people person in the world. We saw his relationship fizzle a tad with Zach Ertz. We saw that when it's time for him to make a certain decision, and no matter who the other person is, like, he does have a my way or the highway type of deal, which I don't mind a general manager doing that. You need to do what's best for the organization. You have to think about the interest at mind here for the Eagles, and if that upsets someone's feelings or if that hurts someone's feelings, so be it. I'm sorry. At the same time, there's enough history now to see it flop so badly. I got to imagine that there's a correlation between that and what I'm expressing to you all. Now, that doesn't mean I don't want him here. I like Howie Roseman. I think he does a lot of good things. Even this whole criticism of Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, because it seems these guys have hit a wall and they are very fatigued. When you go out and draft a J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, a wide receiver from Stanford, when you have an LSU stud in Justin Jefferson. You ever hear that man before? Okay, I know you have. Justin Jefferson, right? Oh, he's only a slot receiver. The guy is unbelievable, right? Okay, so you go draft some wide receiver named Jalen Reagor from TCU. And all we banged on the table screaming was what? Go to Alabama. Go to Georgia. What are you doing? Go to LSU. Now he looks at his interior line and goes and gets 2 of the most impressive defensive tackles from the biggest college in the country, and now all of a sudden that was a disaster. I don't buy that. Now, I don't know what Jordan Davis is, and there were legitimate concerns about snap counts because they have so many studs that they rotate them and they don't have as much how do I say this? They don't have as many snaps as maybe you would like, and will that be bad for their conditioning and weight? And there were things of that nature, but the pure raw skill set showed a ton, and you're willing to take that risk on someone like Jordan Davis and someone like Jalen Carter to now all of a sudden say, what a horrendous thought process and what a terrible way to draft a team. That's silly. That's nonsense. And I know that Jordan Davis is hitting a bit of a wall here in his second year, and Baldy from the top rope just ripping this guy to new shreds. I thought in a little too much of a harsh fashion. I trust Baldy. He does a great job, and he never normally speaks out that intense about a player. So when he does, it makes you raise your eyebrows and wonder, okay, what's he seeing on the tape? What's he seeing on the film? These guys have put in a lot of snaps. Josh Sweat, Jordan Davis, they're not accustomed to playing this level of wear and tear. Now, you could say, dude, that's your job. Your job is to put yourself in a position from training camp, from OTAs, from preseason, to make sure that you can make it down to the wire. Because if you're going to make legitimate postseason runs, you need to be in your best shape. You're not the only team that's tired this time of the year. You think Dallas is tired? You think other teams are tired? Absolutely. Hell, Pat Mahomes was hobbling on one leg last season when he beat you in the Super Bowl, so he wasn't even 100%. You have to find a way, man. You got to dig deep. You got to get that will. No doubt. At the same time, it is real that you are running these guys through the ground, and someone like Derek Barnett, not that I'm a huge Derek Barnett supporter, but he's an inning eater. He eats snaps. You're missing a body right now on that defensive line in the rotation. And don't look now, but go look at some of what he's been doing out in Houston, or down in Houston, in the area of Houston. I guess that's down, right? Down in Houston. I'm not a geography guy. Down in Houston. But yeah, the fatigue thing, I'm not willing to give up on Jordan Davis because he's working through some adversity here, and same with Jalen Carter in their first and second years. It wasn't too long ago that we put this guy on a big pedestal because of how he reacted to the play with Josh Allen running out of bounds, and we've never seen a man like that catch that type of speed and tackle someone to the ground. And Josh Allen is no 4'5", 100-pound man. Okay, he's massive, he's very physical, he's very athletic, and Jordan Davis ran him down. I mean, there is a lot to work with here. Doesn't make it any easier to watch in the moment, but I guess my point is, let's not go overboard and start calling for these extremes that now all of a sudden the two studs from Georgia can't play a lick. The problem with this defense is you're either too old or you're too raw. Ringo, Sidney Brown, not time for them yet. And then you have Brandon Graham and Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. Brandon Graham, not really. I mean, the guys that I think you can expect more from just at a prime with their body and prime on where they are is Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat. And Josh Sweat needs to be better. I don't want to hear that he loves his win rate, because he was actually excited that he can rush the passer and make him hurry, even though he wasn't statistically getting sacks. I'm sick and tired of that. You have to get to the quarterback, dude. You need to bring them down, okay? You can't be crying on the sidelines because you got super close and you didn't make the play. You have to make the play. You have to create turnovers. You got to push the football out of the hands of the quarterback when you get to him. You got to strip sack. You got to give the opportunity for Fletcher Cox to jump on it. Fletcher Cox, and man, it shows you what he's been able to do in his career for as long as he's done it. He's probably your most consistent defensive player this year on the defensive line. Now, that's a problem. That means nobody else is stepping up and doing their job. But it's crazy that he's able to do it for as long as he has at this level. At this level. He's still hanging in there. He's still giving you enough. I know he's not the player that he once was, but that doesn't mean we can't appreciate that he's now in year 74 and he's still just going. He's still chucking, right? While some of the young kids are experiencing a wall and they're realizing that this is difficult and it's tough and you're going up against bigger linemen and you're doing it for week after week after week after week. It's a grind. They bulldoze you. And here's Fletch just putting his hand in the dirt, and as soon as the ball snapped, he's doing his thing, man. It's pretty remarkable for sure. Here's a question that I find very hard to answer. And you know what? Before we do that, let's take a quick second, a quick timeout, so I can talk to you all about my friends at HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You can skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. As you all know, I have a newborn here now, and I don't have as much time as I used to. So I can't go food shopping. I don't have the ability to stop at ShopRite and spend an hour in there, wait to go to the checkout line. No. And that's why HelloFresh is amazing, is they're able to drop it off right at your doorstep. The ingredients are already pre-portioned, ready to cook, and there's pictured step-by-step cards. It doesn't get much easier than that. It's also cheaper. HelloFresh is 25% less expensive than takeout. So that means you get an easy home-cooked meal on the table and even more money back in your pocket. This has changed my life. My wife and I have so much creativity with our meals now. Sometimes we got stuck with, okay, tacos, chicken, and it seems like every single week we were eating the same meals. There's over 40 recipes to choose from every week with HelloFresh, so it's super different, and it's a beautiful, beautiful item. What you need to do is go to HelloFresh.com/50broads and use code 50broads for 50% off and free shipping. That's 50broads for 50% off and free shipping. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. Okay, so I heard this stat on the WIP morning show. It was James Seltzer, and this was maybe 2 days ago, and I've been sitting on it. 30% of Super Bowl losers don't make the playoffs the following year. 30% of Super Bowl losers don't make the playoffs the next year. Knowing that, having the knowledge of that statistic, does that change the way you view this football team? And my answer is easy. No. Because that gives Nick Sirianni a free pass. Schematically speaking, they're flawed. If they were losing differently, and I believed in what the coaches were teaching, and I believed in the routes that the receivers were running, and I thought their concepts were strong and can work, they're just beaten down because of a deep Super Bowl run last year, then that's different. And I don't think that compares to the fatigue that I was just talking about. I look at it completely different. So, no, I don't, because there's things that are out of that side of it that's going on here. If the only reason why they were failing was because of that, then fine. But there are real, legitimate, fundamental issues that you have control over that you aren't fixing, and you aren't finding ways to be better. Instead, we're hearing from the wide receiver that him and Jalen Hurts are improvising, which leads to sloppiness, and you're on the road in Seattle, you're trying to at least help tie a football game that you let slip from a 92-yard drive by Drew Lock, and now all of a sudden, that's what you're doing with the game on the line. You're improvising instead of actually having a detailed plan, and I want to emphasize and highlight and bold the word detailed plan to go win a football game, or at least to go tie a football game after you let it slip. I can't let that happen. So therefore, the fundamental issues are way deeper than they went to the Super Bowl last year, and that's why they're struggling so heavily. So that's my take on it. And Sidney Brown spoke about practice habits. He was on with Rob Ellis after the final game against the Cardinals here, and he did a radio hit, and he says, like, yeah, the way we practice and, you know, the physicality of. Now, he's a born physical player. He only has one way about attacking. He goes downhill, he lowers his shoulder, he's not afraid of contact, and I love that mentality, but I almost wonder, is he feeling that way just because that's his DNA? That's how he knows the game of football and he doesn't know it any other way? Or is there some serious talks to be had about maybe the soft approach with Sirianni through the weeks, through the training camps and all that? Not that I'm a 65, 70, 75-year-old man screaming that I need to see them tackle everybody to the ground for 4 straight weeks of two-a-days where they throw up in trash bags because you're not allowed to drink water, and the only sort of liquid you can have is swallowing your saliva, and that's how you better hydrate yourself. I'm not going back to those old school days. Is there something, though, to this whole missed-tackling stuff, not being as physical, getting outworked, getting outmanned, not wanting it as much, to the practice habits? Because if they're not detailed, that means their practice habits aren't strong enough. And if Sidney Brown, a rookie who's just coming into the league, is already sort of having his eyebrows up, I don't know, does that concern you, or does he not know better yet, right? Because when you're in college and you're playing at Illinois, the college coach has all the power, and they can scream at you, they can get in your face. Maybe there's an adjustment period from Sidney Brown's angle of hey, this is how pro football works. It's different. It's a little player-driven. The coaches are more of a handler than they are the dictator, and this is him going through that experience. Take that for what you will. I just want to give you the information, and then you can think and come up with your own opinions accordingly as I share mine. But sometimes I like to give you certain things to plant in your head, and then, of course, you can break it all down. All right, with that, let's roll over to our favorite time of the show, and that's the Anytime Hotline. So let's fire these puppies off.
Hey, bros. Rowdy Syracuse here. I can't get really hyped up for any more of these Eagles games. I really wish I could. I mean, unless we blow out the Giants somehow and blow out wherever we got in the first round, then maybe I could start to think about it. But I just don't see it happening. But I have heard that AJ said that he doesn't have any bad blood towards Sirianni. And, I mean, that's all well and good. I mean, I hope that the whole locker room can just at least become cohesive. Just don't be at each other's throats. Don't look at like someone just kicked your puppy. Just get there. Just play like you care. And if nothing else, it seems like this is the end of the line for Jason Kelsey. And I mean, it's been on and off with that one for a few years, but who knows? So who knows? But if nothing else, play for Jason. Play for Big Kelsey. Play for BG. Play for Cox. Play for Lane. I don't know when their time's going to be up, but just play for them. If nothing else, play for the vets. They've been there. They've done it. Most of them guys have been playing since I was underclassmen in high school.
It is pretty remarkable that they're still kicking. And, okay, so here are my thoughts as you lay that out, right? Play for that guy next to you. Play for Lane Johnson. I don't feel as if the locker room doesn't like one another. They may be frustrated, right? They may be angry at certain things, but I don't feel that there's hostility. I think A.J. Brown loves Devontae Smith. I think Devontae Smith loves DeAndre Swift. I think DeAndre Swift loves Jason Kelsey. I think Darius Slay loves James Bradbury. I think Brandon Graham loves James Bradbury. I think Sidney Brown loves Reed Blankenship. I know they all love Reed Blankenship. So it's not an issue with wanting to do it for one another. I do believe that they're giving it their all out there. I don't believe that they're giving up or that they just aren't trying. They aren't. It's a problem. I think they are trying, and this is the result. They are trying, and this is what you have. Shaq Leonard's trying. He's just not good. Milton Williams, a guy that you would think by now maybe would have some more pop to his name. Josh Sweat, they're trying. Brandon Graham, trying. Jordan Davis, that's why when Baldy's like, get him off the field. I wouldn't even dress him. Like, that's a little, I think he's giving you everything he has. And by the way, it's not as if you are just filled with so many defensive tackles to filter through. You're not really there in that department, right? So, the whole, like, do it for them. I get that message. One, I don't know if they would want that message because Jason Kelsey was recently asked about if he's even processing, if that was his last home game at the Link. And while I'm sure he's had some conversations with his wife and his family, as we all saw the documentary on Amazon Prime, which was amazing and hit the heartstrings pretty heavily, and you know the time is coming up. I don't believe it's in their personality to stress that to the team as a selling point. He's just in the thick of the season. He's in the grind of the season. He is somewhat brainwashed in a good way of only worrying about what's ahead of him, only worrying about the next game on Sunday and let it play out in front of his eyes and do everything he possibly can one day at a time to put himself in the best position for that upcoming Sunday. I don't know if that's a selling point. I could be wrong. Maybe they get that desperate. Maybe they have to dig deep down into that bag of tricks so much to try and inspire that they lean into, yo, boys, look around you. All right, we read off those Pro Bowl names and think about how many numbers are next to Lane Johnson, how many numbers are next to Jason Kelsey. We got to ride for them because that can't be one of their last games, something along those lines. It's not impossible. I just don't think that's the initial selling point. I could be wrong, though.
Boy, it's a mess in Philadelphia with this football team. I mean, you got A.J. Brown saying one thing and Nick Sirianni saying another. What the hell? I mean, this team's a mess. They have no identity. It's a shit show right now in Philadelphia. I don't know what's going on. Well, I do. They're fraudulent. And I don't know, man. I'm not even thinking about the playoffs. That's how depressing this is, that you've got an 11-win, potential 12-win football team, and we don't even give a fuck about what they do in the playoffs because we know they could fuck around and win a game maybe, but they ain't winning more than one. I don't see them beating Dallas. I don't see them beating San Francisco. I don't see them beating the Rams. I mean, there's a lot of teams that'll torch you. So this team's cooked. It's Sixers season as far as I'm concerned.
I don't feel differently than you. I feel very similar in regards to what they can do in the playoffs. Could they win a game against the Rams? Could they win a game against the Seattle? Could they win a game against the Tampa Bay? I'm just saying that tier of team. Yeah, I think they could. And would I bet on it? Absolutely not. There's no way in hell I would ever bet on this Eagles team right now, but it wouldn't be impossible. I guess I wouldn't give them a lot of love, though, because when you're playing this first weekend, that's not the objective. Winning a playoff game, if you're the Giants, right, this is how you should value this first-round playoff game. The Giants last year beating Minnesota, that's a big deal. These first-round playoff games for Brian Daboll and a team like New York playing Minnesota, whooping their ass, Daniel Jones, and that fan base went wild. And then what happened? They stepped in to play the Philadelphia Eagles and got pantsed. They got beaten up bad, and their face was bloody as hell, broken nose, orbital bone destroyed. Their jaw was touching their earlobes because it was so rocked heavily. That's the team that won a playoff game in the first round, that New York Giants team. There's no way that Sirianni gets a check mark. There's no way that Sirianni gets a big old 2 thumbs up for winning a first-round game if they do. You know what would have been nice for Sirianni and Jalen Hurts? The first year of them going to the playoffs where they went to Tampa Bay and Todd Bowles forced Hurts to go left. If they were able to somehow win that game, that's where you would have got 2 thumbs up. Not now. Not after a Super Bowl appearance and the expectations are high. And one thing that blows my mind is that we're constantly being told it's so hard to play in this city. And the media attention is so aggressive that, as you alluded to, right there, they can win 12 games and the city of Philadelphia is on fire because they don't trust what their team is doing. Yeah, because we have a brain. Why would we blindly trust after watching snap by snap? See, when you watch 2 quarters every 2 weeks, you don't have a say. You don't have a say. I don't feel my opinion on the Minnesota Vikings or the Detroit Lions or the Chicago Bears or any of these other teams hold as much weight as someone who's in the thick of every single possession, every single snap, every detail of their offense and defense. So don't try. You can point out, well, 4 plays. I see this on ESPN sometimes, and not Dan Orlovsky or Ryan Clark because I think they do an amazing job. And also, I'm not taking shots at specifically them. Sometimes I agree with what they're saying. Sometimes I disagree with what they're saying. But you can always find 4 or 5 or 6 plays in an entire game to describe something. Well, it's not really the design. It's really the players. Let me show you why. And these two didn't do that, by the way. I just know that they're accustomed to being on TV, and we like to look at their film and on. Generally, they do an amazing job, by the way. I'm not taking shots at them. I'm just using it as an example. When it's, well, you know, it's not the players, or excuse me, it's not the design, it's the players. Let me show you. And then there's 5 clips of just a missed throw or someone wide open and the player doesn't execute. Okay, Then go back to show me all the other stuff that I've been bitching about. Because there'll be a lot more clips of what I'm saying, that this team is an utter disaster from a game plan perspective. Why aren't you showing that? Oh, because SportsCenter's only an hour long, and that will take 5 hours to sit through just the first quarter of a football game? Yeah, that's probably why. You just don't have time. My God, you can always nitpick your 4 or 5 clips, your 6 clips. It's about the whole body of work, and we've been watching this team. They haven't been good. They haven't been good. I'd be lying to everybody and doing everybody a disservice if I just looked at their record because, and I'm a broken record, when San Fran came to town and beat you up, you never recovered. It's not hard. This isn't hard to see.
Hey, bros, I'm really frustrated with this team, man. The defense just has to get it together. Defense has to get it together. Another thing is this wide receiver screens, this Brian Johnson offensive coordinator thing, getting Devonta Smith hurt. God, he has to go. Get him fired, man. Get him out of here. I'm very frustrated with the Eagles right now. I don't know my really big thoughts on it. I'm just trying to get my anger out, man.
Okay, thank you. That's why the Anytime Hotline's there, 856-442-9805. I use this as therapy. You can as well. Brian Johnson isn't going anywhere, but this also opens up a side topic of, okay, how many times have players put in input and they weren't willing to listen? Or have they listened and that didn't work either? Is Brian Johnson still calling plays? Because when I found out Sean Desai lost his third down play calls 3 weeks prior to the public knowing, well, is it possible that he's been stripped of some duties, Brian Johnson, that is, already offensively, and Sirianni has his hands in the cookie jar more, and that's why it still continues to look awful? We'll never know. We'll never know this information, but there's one game left. Brian Johnson isn't going anywhere, and you kind of are what you are at this rate. In the offseason, yes, I'd imagine there's 2 new coordinators and the same head coach. That's probably the way they handle things, and I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay if they changed all 3 of them, quite frankly. I think everything's on the table. That's probably a conversation for another day, though. But, yeah, anyway. We'll end things here. Look, TickPick is the greatest in the world. And if you want to go to a Sixers game, a Flyers game, or even a concert out there, TickPick is the best place to go. If you click the link down below in the description, my promo code is activated with that link, and you're going to receive $10 off of your purchase. They have the best prices guaranteed. So their ticket prices will beat any of the major competing marketplaces, and TickPick is so confident about it that they guarantee it. If you find the same seats elsewhere at a better price than TickPick, you get 110% of the price difference in form of TickPick credit. And there's also upfront pricing. So no more doing the math in your head to prepare for how much extra you plan on spending on top of the listed price and on other sites, because the price you see on TickPick is the price you pay at checkout, period. So there's no added service fees, hidden fees, or otherwise. Make sure you click the link down below and join the TickPick family. All right, everybody. Those are my thoughts as we ramble another day, another morning, waking up and trying to get everything off my chest when it comes to this Philadelphia Eagles locker room. It's every day. It's every day. It's amazing, isn't it? Appreciate you. We'll be talking soon.